Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to Dialogue with Prof. Mandi. My name is Kevin Kumire, and I'll be your moderator for tonight. For the past few weeks, we've been focusing on education. So tonight's session, we have invited 6 students who have recently completed their high school education, and we have asked them to share their experience on how the current education system is helping them be a better African citizen, both at home and in society. Each student will share 5 minutes of their experience. After that, we'll hand over the floor to the audience for a question and answer and respond to what the students have to share. Our prof will come in at the end of the session where he will contribute his sentiments. We'll close the session off at 7:30. Session rules. In this session, please keep your microphone muted at all times. Please use the hand reaction button if you wish to ask or contribute a question. Questions and contributions can be shared with the administrator or the moderator via direct messaging. Not all questions will be responded to, but will be included in a media pack, which will later be shared on our social media platforms. I will now introduce our panel of students. Tonight we have Emilia Mabaya, Praise Mutamba, Sarah Tapiwa Bengwa, Tawana Nyashe Jongwe, and Trish Gwiza. So our first speaker will be Emilia Mabaya.
Oh, my apologies. My network zoned out for a bit.
Okay, thank you. Welcome to DWP.
Thank you.
Over to you.
So my first question's response would be, our lives in Zimbabwe are altered on a daily basis due to things like political instability and economic welfare. And we see that not even the adults are coping with everything that's going on. So I would say nothing in the education system has prepared us for the daily, everyday life as a Zimbabwean. But instead, I have learned to adjust from how those around us make do and cope with the little they have and the most they have. So I would say from everything that I've learned in the first grade, nothing has taught me or helped me to know what I'm supposed to do in my everyday life as an adult.
Thank you very much. Question number 2, can you say you have been empowered with the skills to be a productive citizen who can support and contribute to your family now or your future one?
I would say yes, I have. I grew up in an environment of mostly a single mom, and that has pushed me. And I have learned that I've learned leadership skills from her alone. And I know that I can be a productive citizen and I would be able to contribute and support to my future family. Thank you.
Thank you. And if you had to change anything in the current education system, what would you change?
In the current education system, what I would change is the fact that we are putting too much pressure on children. As of now, we see that in Zimbabwe, our education system is pressing too much on the children and they have way too much for them to learn. So I would change the fact of making things lenient for them and allowing them to be children as well, and not building them to be robots with all the amount of schoolwork they're doing.
Thank you very much. Thank you. Thank you. So to our audience, we have asked the students to respond to the 3 questions. I'll just read the questions out so that when they come back, so the next student will just be responding to them, so I don't have to read them out each time. So our first question we asked the students was, can you say, given how much you have learned since the first grade, you are now ready to face the realities of daily life in Zimbabwe or in Africa? Question number 2 was, can you say you have been empowered with the skills to be a productive citizen who can support and contribute to your family now or your future one. And the third question was, if you were to change anything in the current education system, what would you change? So our next student to come in will be Praise Mutamba. Good evening, Praise.
Good evening, Kevin. How are you doing today?
I'm all right.
Yeah. So I think on the first question, I would give a stern no on that one. Because if you really look at it, nothing we've learned is like, crucial to actually like facing the, real world. Because as we look at it, like life is dynamic and ever changing. And the education is supposed to appeal to that, creative, ever evolving edge inside of us, that's inborn inside of us. But instead, traditional education systems, like they're now like discouraging or maybe like rather shrinking that, nature, that part of human nature. So instead of, being taught to solve real life problems, as we are facing day to day in Zimbabwe, we are forced to, like solve these abstract and theoretical problems. We're taught to memorize these dots instead of, learning to actually connect them. But I like how Dan Millman says it in a book, The Way of the Peaceful Warrior. He says that, like life is like paradox. Life is like three things. Life is paradox. Life is human. Life is change. The change aspects meaning that, life comes in waves of changes. Instead of, learning to fight those changes, you need to learn to actually be a better surfer. So we know that life in Zimbabwe is like a never-ending and ever-evolving struggle. So some of the answers, they're not written in textbooks. Some of the answers were actually supposed to originate from within. And education, the word was actually coined from, a Latin term, educe. Educe means to draw out or bring forth. So it means education, the main goal of education was to bring out something that's embedded in us as students. But now instead of bringing out, we're actually stuffing in more and more facts. So honestly speaking, I can say school hasn't really helped me because, especially like in life, in school, we're taught you get the lesson, then you get the test. But in life, you get the test, then you get the lesson. And in life, the lesson is always repeated until it's learned. And failure is only the beginning, not the end, unlike in school. So when you fail, you're actually learning to fail, to try again. And when you actually fail faster, you actually, like grow quicker. So yeah, I think that's my answer on the first question. Then on the second question, I think, well, it's a no again. But my argument this time is, it's like, the education, we're provided with is like totally irrelevant to building a successful life. Because yes, school gets you to the door of opportunity compared to like the normal illiterate person. But the honest truth is school doesn't get you into the room because we know that we know that the decisions we know that what do they say? They say kuti anzi what do they say? I'm forgetting the term I wanted to use. They say if you're not in the room where the decisions are being made, you're in the yard where the consequences are being received. Yeah, that's it. So success in itself, it doesn't, and like that's a struggle most of the scholars are facing in Zimbabwe. They feel like they've gotten to the door, but they are not able to get into that room because they feel like, they're always on the outside. But the unlocking factors, what actually determines this success, it's not knowing the right answer to the examination, but it's actually knowing certain things like, emotional intelligence, financial literacy, character building. Because if we look at, emotional intelligence, right? We learn, Kutim, the moment you learn to be emotionally aware of yourself and of others, you know how to handle other people's emotions, how to handle other people's feelings, you know how to study human mannerisms. And the moment you're like that, you can navigate any social terrain. And the moment you can navigate any social terrain, you can become a flexible leader, you can build relationships effectively, and you can actually handle yourselves in groups of people at any level. And you can also understand the levels of social interaction, which go from, codependency, independence, and the highest one being interdependence. And the moment you now function at interdependence, where you understand that, yes, as much as you're functional, independent from stimuli, you also recognize the need of community to actually, broaden your impact, the impact of your functionality. So the moment you are aware of that, you can actually even work on your own character building, because we know that we are not taught all this in school. Like, we're not taught how to actually work on our emotional problems, how to work on our character, how to work on our thoughts, because our thoughts birth our words and our actions, and they also birth our habits. Habits birth our character, and our character determines our destiny. So we also don't learn that in school. In school, we don't learn financial literacy. We are never taught. We know the formula for compound interest, but we don't know the effectiveness of it. We don't know the power of passive income. We don't know the power of, compound investments, like long-term, worthwhile, real-life investments like real estate, bonds, index funds. We don't know all that. We don't know how to navigate debt and loans. We don't know that. We don't know how to invest in our security, in our lifestyle, and, in our inheritance, those categories, and we don't know where to end. So we have youths right now who are so invested in lifestyle, they forget about security and inheritance. So I feel like these are other lessons we can learn. And we are not even taught to read properly, because we know a reader can live like 1,000 lifetimes over. Because when I read from Warren Buffett, I read from Bill Gates, I know the mistakes they made, I know how they've navigated, and I know the choices they've made. And the moment I read more books, I can actually live something like 1,000 times over. So these are a lot of the skills that we're actually not learning in our school systems. So personally, if I would be given a chance, to change anything, I would probably introduce, in our curricula, things like financial planning for kids, things like emotional intelligence lessons, how to handle relationships, how to build relationships, and how to build character. I think things like that are really needed in the educational system of today. And I think with that, that's my personal opinion on the matter. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Praise, for that informative response. Our next student will be, Sarah hasn't logged in yet. She's having trouble with the network. So our next person will come in is Tapiwa Bengwe. Tapiwa Bengwa.
Okay, good evening, guys. Thank you so much, Professor, for inviting me to this call that is dwelling on such an engaging topic, particularly in our context as African learners who are not only in the education system, but to widen our knowledge base, acquire practical skills, or personally develop ourselves, but also trying to discover more about our African identity. So given what I've learned in the school system, alone since grade 1, I would not be ready to face the realities of Zimbabwe, where practicality and neutrality is required, and not the tons of theses that we were taught. I believe you've known the gospel of the locust, where we are taught about the head, thorax, and abdomen, which we haven't used as of now. I believe the previous education system failed us. I'm saying previous because of the introduction of the new competence-based curriculum, which would then integrate into Education 5.0, that seek to correct the errors of the past system, even though the new system itself is flawed to a certain extent. The education system has failed us from its foundation. The implementation of the Nziramasanga Commission of 1998, where we were expecting a lot of input into the education system, but then we haven't really benefited from it, except that I am able to come on this Zoom and present. Well, I would like to appreciate that from our education system. The realities of Zimbabwe right now demand emotional intelligence, mental health, networking skills, and a culture of collaboration, ubuntu, unu, batana, and not competition, resilience, to mention just a few. And to the next question, where I have been empowered with skills to be a productive citizen who can support and contribute to my family. To a far greater extent, I would say yes. But education indirectly empowered me with the skills. In class, I was never taught the skills. I needed to be productive, but being in class opened my mindset to see that I lacked certain skills. And then I personally embarked on a journey to equip myself with the skills that can help me support and contribute to my family. I began to do free online courses, went for fellowships with organizations in the civic space, and also interacting with a number of people. Conversation and dialogue, it's a skill that is really needed and that I wish will be taught to young people in the education system. And the change that I would like to see, or the change I'll bring to the education system, would be to come up with a totally new framework in terms of scaling and effectively using the capacity of education, which is going to anchor on tailoring the delivery of education to fit into the context of different places across Zimbabwe. This means bringing together all the Christian languages to fully use them. Because right now, if you transfer a learner from Matebele land to Manyika land, it is going to be hard for them to easily acclimatize with the new environment. So if education is there to unite us as a country, I think it's something we really need to change. And also, depending on the context of teaching and learning, modifications are needed to be made for this reform that I intend to bring to be beneficial. Nonetheless, similar to its antecedents in the US, I look at the US as one of the best education systems. Education needs continuous and rigorous critique in order for it to evolve. Education needs to evolve to become a robust instructional tool. And like Professor Rukuni mentioned in his presentation titled Refreshing Africa's Educational Foundation, I listened to the discussion, and he mentioned that the method of delivery of education is more important than the content you give out to learners. Because education is the DNA of how any society operates. So if we are looking forward to an African-oriented learner, we should adopt and craft the cultural techno-contextual approach, CTCA. You can look it up after this conversation. It is an instructional theory that was propounded by a professor in Nigeria, Peter Akinzola. It is a new Afrocentric model which foregrounds the use of digital technology in methodology. Professor Peter envisioned a Wakanda sort of learning where learners can actually embrace their culture and the new technologies. I believe it provides a powerful teaching and learning model, particularly during the COVID-19 lockdowns. Its stated purpose is teaching and learning anchored on the cultural backgrounds of children. So this is my contribution to the discussion. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Tapiwa. Our next speaker will be Tawana Nyasha Jongwe. Tawana Nyasha.
Okay, I'm here. A good evening to all of you. So I got to think about the questions that were given to us today. I'm going to read the first one, which says, can you say, given how much you have learned since the first grade, you are now ready to face the realities of daily Zimbabwean life? And my straight answer to that is a firm no. I feel like education, yes, it has taught us some certain things, but when it comes to skills, to actually be a person, to actually tackle daily life problems, I don't think it has actually equipped us to do so. Let me start with, you need more skills in life more than education for you to get somewhere. I mean, you need social skills. You need to learn how to interact with people. You need to learn how to be a general good person, let me say, for you to be able to, you know, go through daily life. I'm going to say education is nothing without the certified documentation of skill that you need. I'm going to talk about Zimbabwe in general, since you said Zimbabwe. You might have education, but it doesn't really take you anywhere without skill. So I feel like what can get you ready for life is skill. Education is important. Education teaches you, I mean, let's say at school, the things that I learned how to deal with people. That's good. I learned how to, you know, write down essays, how to communicate, how to deal with boredom, how to, you know, deal with teachers, how to interact with people who are not the same people as you when it comes to background, when it comes to ways of thinking. But that's not the only thing that's needed. I mean, if we look at it with a straight point of view without trying to hide anything, in Zimbabwe, basically, for you to get a job or whatever, you need connections. You need to impress people. I mean, let's say if it's an interview, some people do get jobs because of their results, because of things that they've managed to achieve when it comes to documents, PhDs, diplomas, but mostly it's about how you present yourself, how you're talking, how you're smiling, how you're interacting with a person. That can please a person more than your documentations. So I feel like what I've learned from grade 1 to upper 6, it's important. I actually got more lessons outside the classroom than inside. I learned lessons from my friends. Trust this, don't trust people. Do this, do that. Lessons in class were just generally for lessons in class. I mean, yes, I can tell you that I understand how the human body works, but when it comes to actually living a day-to-day life in Zimbabwe, you don't need to know how a human body works. That's not something that's going to get you anywhere. You need to know how to interact with people, how to make deals, how to know when to take offers, when to leave offers, decisions, what to leave, what to take, what to risk with, what not to risk with. Those are things that we don't learn in class. In class, we're just generally aiming for percentages, marks, you know, red ticks, whatever. So I feel like what I've learned so far in class really didn't help me. Like right now, I'm trying to, let's say, I'm trying to get a job. It's more of connections. It's more of who you know, how you're presenting yourself, how people know you, what you can bring to the table. You know, more of what you can think, not what you read in class. Businesses, they need people who can think, people who know how to present themselves, people who can give them ideas. And if these ideas were learned from school, then the businesses would not need people. They'll just read books. They need people who can provide information from their heads, from what they are learning around. So I feel like with what I've learned, honestly, it's important to have documentation. I mean, education raises self-esteem and opportunities for jobs somehow, but I don't think that it's really that important. It really won't help me to face realities, especially in Zimbabwe, that you mentioned Zimbabwe. The second question says, can you say you have been empowered with the skills to be a productive citizen who can support and contribute to your family now or your future one? My answer is a no as well. I think that skills are not learned in school. Like I said, it's basically the same thing to me. Skills are not learned in school. Skills are learned around when you interact with people, when you're talking to your friends, what you do at home, what you see, maybe even on TV. Skills are not learned in school. We're not taught that. We sit in front of a board. We're not taught life skills. We're taught mathematics, and yes, you do use mathematics when you're calculating, I mean, change or whatever from whoever, but you don't use mathematics in a real life situation. There are real life situations that you need to solve, especially when you grow up there. And now that you're talking about families, the future families, you're not going to have mathematics like come through. Your children are not going to bring you mathematics. You need to be able to solve real life issues, debt, financial problems in life. You know, there are a lot of problems that don't really need all of this that we learn in school. Although it's important, I mean, you get somewhere with it. It helps you. It makes you a more brain-free person. You're able to think fast. You're able to make decisions fast. But I feel like skills come from outside the classroom, like I said. So I feel like schools are more important outside than actually inside. When you're interacting with your peers, when you're talking to your friends, when you're walking back home, experiencing what you're experiencing, the days that you cry, especially when it's boarding school, that's when you learn lessons. Lessons are not in class, according to me. So with that, I would generally say, well, school was important. I mean, you can speak in English, that's good. You can write essays, that's good. You know how to solve problems fast. That's great. You've made lifetime friends, connections, people that you're going to always know, people that are going to be with you. That's good. But when it comes to real life problems, real life situations, you need more than just a certificate. You need more than just 15 points or 10 A's. So I feel like with what I've learned, I can't contribute to my future family using my 15 points or my 10 A's. That's important somehow, but honestly, you need more than that. You need more than that to impress, because when you look at it, there are a lot of people getting 15 points. Let's say you're clever. There are a lot of people who are intelligent, but there's more to knowledge than just being a person who's knowledgeable and who's fast. You need wisdom to tackle life. You don't use 15 points to bring food to the table. You don't use 15 points to solve a situation that's going on in your house. You need more than that. You need intellect. You need to think. You need to know how to solve these problems. So I feel like, yes, it's important for you to be educated. It's very important. But at the same time, skills are very important. So right now, I would like to say I'm now starting to learn life skills. Although I can use my points here and there to contribute for my family, it takes skills more. Most of the people who are rich, who've made it, some of them actually talk about dropping out in class because they had the skill. So I feel like skill is more important. So when it comes to contributing to my family, like the question says, I feel like I need skill more than I need education. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Tawana. Our next speaker will be Trish Gwiza.
Okay, good evening to everyone. So to answer the first question, can you say, given how much you have learned since the first grade, you are now ready to go face the realities of daily Zimbabwean life? So just as everyone has been answering, I can boldly say, no, I'm not ready to face the Zimbabwean life, because we can all agree that nowadays children aren't going to school to learn. Children are more or less going to school to pass. Because if you go to school, most teachers are pushing you to finish the syllabus in a year so that you'll be able to revise in the next year. And that leaves no space for our teachers to be able to teach us the many skills that children require for them to be able to go to into the Zimbabwean life. I mean, our parents are sacrificing a lot and spending so much money to pay for the school fees, which is forever changing, because I'm sure that now our parents are paying more than they used to pay in the olden days. They're having to pay more than they actually anticipated when they had given birth to us, because of the Zimbabwean industry. And our teachers also, because they're not being paid, are not really giving children as much advice as they would have if they were being paid according to the amount of work they're putting in. So children are also being pressurized by their students into being better students because of competitiveness. Some children are very competitive with one another. So you see most of them spending time in the classroom learning instead of being taught the skills that they need to be able to enter into the Zimbabwean life. And for the second question, which says, can you say you have been empowered with the skills to be a productive citizen who can support and contribute to your family now or your future one? No, I don't think I'm able to do that. Agreeing with the previous speaker, Tawana Jongwe, I agree with the fact that education is not the most important thing for you to be able to face the harsh Zimbabwean life. If we're just gonna be talking about Zimbabwe as we are, because 15 points and having 20 points or many strings of A's doesn't mean you're fully attained. You need a lot of skills like leadership, responsibility, which is not really being taught in the classroom. Because I mean, a lot of students are very what can I say? The word selfish. Children no longer want to like share information with each other, which is a very bad thing. Because if you're not going to be working in the business sector, you have to be able to share your ideas, of which if you're used to being so selfish and not being open to sharing your ideas, you won't be able to then share your ideas when you're now in the proper Zimbabwean life. So I have been privileged to go to very good schools, and my family has provided a very good life for me. But I think that I haven't been taught the skills that I am eligible for me to provide and support for my own family, even the future one, as I am today. To say, if my parents were to say, you're going to start providing for the family, I don't think I'll be able to do so, because as it stands, I don't have a job. There are very few job opportunities here in Zimbabwe, even if I have 20 points or 15 points. So yeah, that's what I have to say.
Thank you very much for that contribution. Is Sarah in? Sarah is our last student before we hand over the floor to the audience for questions and answers and contributions.
Moderator, don't we still have Tapiwa?
Tapiwa just is the one who Tapiwa went. Sarah hasn't connected. So once she's able to connect, we'll bring her in. Thank you very much for the students for responding to the questions. I would like to open up the floor to the audience. If you'd like to ask the students questions or respond to what you have heard so far, then please use your hand reaction button and we'll unmute you. There's a question here in the DM for any one of the students. Do you feel your schooling has contributed in your understanding of who you are as a Zimbabwean and as an African? Is there anyone who'd like to answer that? Anyone in the panel?
Okay, Kevin, can you repeat the question for me, please?
The question is, do you feel your schooling has contributed in your understanding of who you are as a Zimbabwean and as an African?
Yes, to a certain extent, it has contributed to my understanding of being a Zimbabwean. But then I wouldn't say class directly, but I was part of a quiz team, and being part of the quiz team exposed me to more information about how being Zimbabwean is actually beneficial to me. And also, just recently, I took a course by Social Network. It has also helped me to discover who I am as an African. So I would say partially school has helped, and also the passion to know who I am has helped.
Thank you. We have Praise.
Okay. I think commenting on, like the issue of self-discovery and, cultural rooting, really, I don't think, yes, as much as school has made us acquainted to us, being Shona and all that, but I've actually witnessed it's, like many schools, especially like our school. Okay, fine, let me just start my video. Yeah, I noticed that many schools, especially, like including our school, most of the people actually we're not intentional about, subjects like Shona or, the vernacular subjects like that. So I feel like the first, or maybe where school actually missed it, is someone can't actually be culturally rooted when they haven't, cultivated that, self-interest or that intrinsic value inside of them. And school has made like maybe lives, like, what can I call it, maybe standardized for every single person. So when the moment when we don't have unique people, or we don't have that uniqueness, or we don't have that diversification of characters, we can never have a prevailing culture. Because if we look at it, for there to actually be a culture, we need an ecosystem of different people who believe in different things, who come together to actually create, a healthy society, and we're actually, supporting each other in their differences. But, even if you check in school is like, let's say if a doctor is supposed to give the same prescription to all his patients who are sick with the same exact illness, that would be tragic, isn't it? That's this manja in school. We have one teacher in front of one class, a class where kids come from different places, where kids, believe in different things. Kids, have different strengths and different weaknesses, and chi. So now we have a lot of kids who are being judged. We have a lot of fish who are being judged by their ability to climb a tree. You get that? And of course, if a fish is judged by its ability to climb a tree, it will feel useless. And the moment when someone is actually useless, they can never have pride in anything, even culture, even, even their own character. And another thing also is that character deformity has forced people to now find their comfort in personality, because we know these days, even the reason why we struggle so much with culture is because culture is, supported by the pillar of character. And these days we no longer have characters, we have personalities, mainly because of, other outside influences, right? So social media is it's over influencing more than school itself. So children now have more of personalities. Children no longer have culture. Even I can say I found my culture in school, because school is like so void. It's now devoid of that side of culture. It's that voice is like, it has been abandoned in, modern schooling. So I can say, school has helped me with culture, or finding my own culture as a young Zimbabwean. Yeah, I guess maybe that's my contribution on that one.
Thank you very much, Praise. Sarah is now here. Sarah?
Hello.
Hi, good evening.
Good evening, how are you?
Not too bad. The floor is yours, so you can go ahead.
Can you please repeat your question?
The two questions which are there are, question number one is, can you say, given how much you have learned since the first grade, you are now ready to face the realities of daily Zimbabwean life? The second question is, can you say you have been empowered with the skills to be a productive citizen who can support and contribute to your family now or your family in the future? And the third question is, if you could change anything in the education system, what would it be?
I think I'll take the first one. Hello?
Hello, we can't hear you. We can hear you now, yes.
Can you repeat your first question, the first one?
The first question is?
Just ask you one question at a time.
Okay. The first question is, can you say, given how much you have learned since the first grade, you are now ready to face the realities of daily Zimbabwean life?
Yes, I am.
Okay. The second question is, can you say you've been empowered with the skills to be a productive citizen who can support and contribute to your family now or your family in the future?
I think so because you can provide for your family through, let's say, agriculture. I do agriculture at school, so I can help them through. I can start my own projects and I can sell my produce and stuff. Hello.
Thank you. Yes. And the last question is, if you were to change anything in the current education system, what will it be?
I would change the way things are being done around me. I could change the way things are being done around me, economically, financially, and globally.
Thank you very much for your contribution.
Okay, you're welcome.
Anyone in the audience who's got a question for the panel or contribution to make, please use your hand reaction button and we'll unmute you. Any questions or contributions? We have a contribution here. In previous generations, children would take on the family trade as a stepping stone in family and to contribute to the family income in some way. And also to gain work ethic. Are young children still willing to take on that path these days? To which extent and at what age? Any more questions or contributions? Vicky?
Okay, I have a question for the students. So my question is, what do you feel education has added to you as an individual?
Thank you. Any one of the panelists would like to contribute? Would like to answer? Praise?
Okay, I think I'd like to answer the first question you asked about, how like our youths these days, like still eager to actually, like develop work ethic, working in the family trade. I think you asked something like that. Confirm.
Yes. You want me to repeat it or?
Yeah, maybe you can repeat it so I can, get a proper rephrasing on that one.
Okay. In previous generations, children would take on the family trade as a stepping stone in life and to contribute to the family income in some way, and also to gain work ethic. Are young children still willing to take on a path these days? To which extent and at what age?
Okay, so I think I might introduce a rather, like unheard of phenomenon in my comment. But okay, fine. I think not. Like people our age use these days, they're no longer eager when it actually comes to, the traditional work style and the traditional work ethic. Because as I mentioned previously, we no longer have character. Because if you look back in the days, our fathers and their fathers, they believed in, nobility, they believed in integrity, they believed in honor, they believed in valor and things like that. But those things, they no longer matter in our society, because our society is driven by what? Driven by standards and just driven by personalities. So these days, instead of us, getting that positive influence of what a good character actually looks like, we're getting most of our attention taken by, you know, things like social media. So our definition of standards is actually now coming from, you know, that standardization of the masses and that's actually usually so uncultured because some opinions don't agree with our culture. So, you know, these opinions like working, or maybe what may I actually say, like we have confusion, or there's now a blurred line between things like purpose and things like potential. Like we're now chasing this cloud of toxic potential. So when someone versus our purpose, because we confuse our potential is our purpose, but that's actually not how it's supposed to be. And we think our purpose is this big thing, right? But what we don't understand is our purpose is in the next right thing. It's like right in front of us. Like if you're a student right now, your purpose is to read that book the best way you can and the best way you know how. So back in the day, our parents, because they believed, you know, in things like this, they believed in true purpose. I'm a part of this family. As an interdependent member of this family, my purpose right now, while I'm waiting to go to school, is to offer my own work, you know, maybe even free work as value to add to the family. But these days, because we are all glistening towards potential, we see on Instagram another 19-year-old, another place is driving a Mercedes-Benz, a GLE, whatever. And that's all potential. So instead of focusing on building work ethic, we're rushing towards, you know, these glittering things. So we rush towards those things with zero work ethic. Behind, you know, behind with zero work ethic and, you know, zero experience. So I feel like, you know, the moment we as, you know, the moment we as youths confuse that fine line between potential and purpose, we can even breach what the common norms or what our culture has been used to believe in. So it's no longer there. Yeah, it was a really good structure where, you know, people are, or children are introduced into, you know, the workforce. But these days it's no longer there because now social media is setting the standards for everyone. I guess maybe that's it.
Thank you very much, Praise, for your contribution. Anyone else in the panel who would like to respond to that? Tapiwa?
I'd like to give a different perspective to the question by Munya, where we asked in previous generations, children would take on the family trade as a stepping stone. I have a case of a friend who had a passion for football. He loved soccer, but then his father was a well-established businessman. As we grew, you'd say he doesn't want anything to do with the business. He wanted to focus on his own passion. But as he grew, when he finished his A-levels, he just said, I need to go out of the country so that I do business management and come back to the family business with new ideas. So I still believe at the age where you are shifting from childhood to adulthood, that gap from being a teenager to an adult, I think is the age where one can actually choose a path to either gain work ethic or focus on other different paths. Yeah, thank you.
Thank you very much, Tapiwa. Is there anyone else on the panel who would like to respond to that? I have a read in this from one of the people in the audience. In this generation, most of us as students are more pressured to pass the subject and submit the work we are given. I feel like we are learning less and more focused on passing than we are learning. How do you think we can change this, especially with the pressures from teachers and even our parents? So this question is open to anyone and even anyone on the panel. We also have a contribution. Does anyone want to respond to the question I just read out before I read this contribution?
Yeah, what was the question?
The question is, in this generation, most of us as students are more pressured to pass the subject and submit the work we are given. I feel like we are learning less and more focused on passing than we are learning. How do you think we can change this, especially with the pressures from teachers and even our parents?
Yeah. I feel like, there's that difference between people who are really smart and people who just know how to score better. So we have this, dilemma, as kids, we're being expected to give, superb results, or either that or we're actually failures and . So I feel like, personally, it all starts with you as a person. Because the moment when you start looking at, external factors to determine who you are or how good you are or how relevant you are, it actually means that you have no intrinsic value. Because the honest truth is, these days, because of, everything going on around us and all the external pressures, our value has become more externalized than, centralized on ourselves. The things that are valuable to us are either, the opinions people think about us, and when you have better results, people think better about you. The things that we have is, phones, cars, houses, and all that. Things we have is, titles and things like that. So people themselves, they have valuable titles, they have big titles, they have, big results, but intrinsically, they are not valuable. They are not valuable people. So I feel like pressure from the outside will always be there. And I'm not sure how many of you guys, did physics, but I bet you understand the phenomena, Yakuti. At any point in time, we're being exerted so much pressure by the atmospheric, by the atmosphere that but the air inside us, or the air that we actually breathes in, it comes to equal the force of that pressure. So if we stop breathing and we have zero air inside of our bodies, we might actually get crushed. So the same way, when pressure will always be exerted on the outside, you should focus on exerting an equal pressure on society as an individual. Because the honest truth is, if you don't exert internal pressure to the outside, you'll be crushed by the views, by the opinions, by whatever. So you should also aim to invest in your own personal value and become a valuable person. And when you're a valuable person, you have weighting, and you don't need those standards. You can actually now push back on the pressure that's coming on the outside, and you can actually get to a point of neutrality. So I feel like, as students, we actually need to learn that balance. Pressure is always going to be there from the outside. We can never have a moment, which you were saying, we are living in a world where there's zero pressure and standards, because wherever there are standards, there's always going to be pressure. That's a fact, and you cannot live without pressure. But we need to learn to exert that internal pressure. That is internal pressure that comes from self-esteem. So I feel like, as students, we need to be taught, you can also exert an equal pressure so that you can't be crushed by the opinions that are coming from the outside. I think that's my personal opinion on that.
Thank you very much, Praise, for that. We have a question from Brian, but before I give Brian the mic, I just want to read this contribution from Mazita. Catch them as young as possible, I guess. I have a friend who bought a farm and his oldest son is 9 and youngest is 7. They're involved in agricultural operations, especially during the holidays and this lockdown period. The agricultural knowledge those boys have is just wow. Legacy is being built, I would think. Thank you for that contribution. Over to you, Brian.
Thanks, Kevin. So I've been listening to all the responses and arguments, and I must say that they are quite very insightful. And in your responses, there seems to be consensus that the education system in Zimbabwe is kind of misplaced and irrelevant in terms of preparing one to the realities in the country. My question, in your opinion, what do you think should be done to address this misnomer between the education system and the realities on the ground? I thank you.
Thank you. Does anyone on the panel want to pick that up? Praise? Over to you, Praise.
Okay. I feel like it's, collective effort. The guys at the top cannot do them on themselves. They also need the input of, us, the young minds and the students and all that. But I feel like we need a more object-oriented, curriculum, something that involves, these things that actually set us apart. Because I was looking at things like, emotional intelligence, from ages 10 to 24, the prevailing cause of death right now is like suicide. So even, taking time to include things like suicide awareness, children are dealing with stresses, children are dealing with trauma, children are dealing with all these things. And the moment when someone is not emotionally intelligent or they're not emotionally whole, they can actually never function in any society, no matter who they are or no matter how many results they have. So I feel like, first of all, investing in mental health, actually even having a psychiatrist on the school staff team, a professional psychiatrist who works not only on the students' mental health, but also even on the teachers. Because we find, Kuti, sometimes the attitude of the teachers can actually affect the students. So overly valuing mental health in our societies can actually help a lot in, even boosting up, children. And also, I feel like, more of interactive, more of, interactive learning. Like, what's I think it was Cornelius, she was talking about, agriculture. Kuti, some things that you can actually do hands-on, it's much, much better than, the book knowledge. And so I feel like, the moment we move from abstract learning to that practical learning, because I believe, even things like computer science is not in the textbook. Computer science is in the computer. That's why we always, struggle with things like, computer science, because we're trying to look for computer science in the textbook. Children who actually do computer science, they should be engaged even, in the school programming, things like that. So I feel like, a direct involvement, we need a curricula or a learning system which directly involves the children, even it's, their young stages, individually, that involves them in what they are learning about, I feel like, the moment children are more involved, they are more proactive. And the moment they are more proactive, they learn better and they actually open up their hearts. Because learning is no longer just, something you have to do, but it's something that actually opens up your heart and something that warms you from the inside. And you feel so excited to be doing what you're supposed to do, what you're supposed to actually be doing. So I feel like, we should bring the fun back and the relevance back into our learning. Yeah.
Thank you very much, Praise, for that. I totally agree with you on what you said in terms of emotional intelligence and what having a psychiatrist on campus for students these days, because you see in the news, you hear a lot of stories about kids committing suicide because mentally everything is not well. They just need somebody to talk to because of the pressures of society. So I think it's something that definitely schools need to start looking into. Thank you for that contribution. We have a contribution here, very impressive points from students. Do they remember sharing anything from their schooling to their less exposed relative, Gogo or Sekuru or Herd Boy at the village? This is a question to the panel. Very impressive viewpoints from students. Do you guys remember sharing anything from your schooling to your less exposed relatives like your gogo or sekuru or the herd boy at your village. Tapiwa?
Okay. I would like to answer that one because it's true to my context. So in 2017, I was in Form 3. Let me just tell you my story. Things weren't okay for my family, and then we had to make our townhouse to be a boarding house for Great Zimbabwe University students, and we shifted to live in Mushandike, Kwabuka, for those who have used the Great Bridge Highway. So we were living on a farm, and I went with my Dell laptop, and we had a solar on the farm, so my laptop was always charged. So I invited a couple of boys over to my place, and after Kunogezeram Canal, and then we watched a movie, and then we did it for like 3 days until at some point they came to watch a movie, and I was busy drafting an Excel sheet. And then they said, "What are you doing? Movie. And then I told them, "No, this is basic Excel. Have you ever used Word? Have you ever used PowerPoint?" And to my surprise, they didn't know all of that. The only thing they knew about a computer was to burn my disk with some music memory card, nekuonama movie. So I took it upon myself to start by teaching them basic skills, teaching them about the keyboard itself. This is the space bar, this is the shift, this does this. And the experience was exhilarating. Yeah, so I can clearly and vividly remember me imparting the knowledge that I have to other people.
Thank you very much, Tapiwa, for that. Anyone else want to respond to that question on the panel or in the audience? Okay. Any questions or contributions? Thank you, everybody, for your contributions. I would like to hand over the floor to Professor Mandi before I close off the session. Over to you, Prof.
Thanks so much, Kelvin, for the opportunity to come at the end. I just don't know how much to thank the panelists. I mean, I learned so much listening to these young minds about the real world they're living in, between home and school. It's just amazing. I mean, everyone said something that I'd never thought through before. So I was really just glued to my little screen here, listening to everything. I was learning so much. Amelia said, something to the effect that education is not prepared her for the political life. How do you handle politics in your country? How do you deal with an economy which is not firing? And then she said most of her leadership skills were actually from her mother. All this pointing out to the fact that homeschooling, that what we learn from our siblings, our parents, from the community, probably, especially when we're young, is probably far more important than trying to cover up later on in life at university. She also said, allow the children to be children. Why force them to be adults before they're children? Which also goes back to traditional worldview around schooling of children or early childcare education, that the way children learn is very different from where adults learn. So let's not force kind of adult-based pedagogies on them. Fantastic contribution. Then Praise said something really, really interesting. She said at school she experienced that there's almost a discouragement of creativity, problem solving. You're just being forced to kind of have high marks, but you're not able to be creative or solve problems. So she also said, instead of kind of dealing with day-to-day issues and problems, you are forced to deal with theoretical problems or hypothetical problems instead of just learning based on actual problems that exist. I think it's really a deep point if our educational system was able to even just change the curriculum so that the learning process is focused on the day-to-day challenges that the children are seeing and facing at home and in the community, as opposed to all the hypothetical ones that we see coming out of the textbooks. And I think it was still her who spoke about the need for the educational system to impart more of the emotional intelligence, character building, I think she said, and getting the student, the child, to have a stronger sense of belonging with the community, so that there's a lot of community focus. Yeah. Then Tapiwa came in with some pretty powerful stuff. How he had to learn outside the school, get a lot of the critical skills really outside the schooling system. And he said something really fundamental about education. He was saying all the 16 official languages, Zimbabwe, and I suppose this would apply to all other African countries, it should just be used in the learning process. And then I think at the end, he emphasized the point that the problem with the education system is that it's teaching our youngsters to respond more to the external stimulus as opposed to the internal stimulus, so that the internal switch is continuously switched off, and the external switch is one that is continually on and on. So people are, the social skills and the lifestyles that people love to identify with as youngsters are more derived from external stimulus rather than from really self-driven internal stimulus. I thought that was a fantastic point. Then I also say that a lot of the good skills that are needed in life are not coming from the school, they're coming from outside the school and not from inside the school. So I think those were, in fact, you also punctuated it by saying an important word, wisdom. You hardly learn wisdom from the school system, and the opportunities to learn wisdom from parents, grandparents, community sources is dwindling because of the way we have structured our educational system. Trish also was a no in terms of the fundamentals of life learned from school. And she said, well, children are not going to school to learn much, but to actually to pass exams, and she said something that was so enlightening for me. She said that education, now I'm paraphrasing, I hope that I'm not putting words in your mouth. Apologies, Trish, if I put words in your mouth. But I got the impression that you were saying the educational system is kind of inadvertently teaching our youngsters to be selfish, because it's supposed to be, the knowledge is your own, you can't even share it. The learning process encourages individualism and selfishness, and doesn't encourage sharing skills and knowledge. I think it's a very, very important point. you know, if that's what you meant. I'm sure that's what I got from what you were saying. And then Bill said she was different from the rest. She said no. She was the only one who unequivocally said, yeah, no, the educational system has given me some skills. And she gave example of agriculture and how that has allowed her to learn to be self-reliant, you know, and so on and so forth. You know, I thought that was refreshing. She had different points, different from the others. But sorry for the optics. She kept looking up like she's listening to somebody telling her what to say. That was the only thing that worried me. Otherwise, I thought it was good that at least she was different. So in all, I just don't know how to thank the panelists. And all in all, I just hope that we're going to have a few more of these panels and get more of them from a greater diversity of schools and environments. And I think that we as adults are going to learn more about what the schooling system ought to be and how it ought to prepare young people for real life on the ground and for being true Africans. So with that, Kevin, I would just say, what can I say except to repeat what they've said? And I'm truly grateful for their contributions. And on behalf of everybody who was participating today, I would like to say to our panelists a big thank you, and continue to share your knowledge and wisdom with everybody else in Zimbabwe and on the continent. Thank you very much. Over back to you, Kevin.
Thank you very much, Prof, for that. I would like to thank everybody on the panel for joining us tonight, for taking time to share with us. Thank you to the audience for joining us tonight on DWP. Big shout out to the DWP technical team for putting this session together. This session will be available on our YouTube channel within the next 24 hours. Please like and subscribe Dialogue with Prof. Mandi, where you can be able to receive future content. Do follow us on our social media platforms. On Facebook, it's Dialogue with Prof. Mandi, and on Facebook, it's at Dialogue with Prof. Thank you very much, and good night.